I want to share something with you today that I found genuinely useful, not just in my work with others, but in making sense of my own life. One of the things that makes personal development hard is that it can be difficult to know where you actually are. You might sense that something needs to change. You might have read books, attended workshops, had good conversations, and yet the question persists: where do I start? What do I do next? Over many years of working in this space and reflecting honestly on my own journey, I noticed that growth tends to follow a recognizable shape. The circumstances are always particular to the person, but the inner arc tends to pass through similar territory. I call that arc the heart model. Let me walk you through it. H is for helpless. And I want to be careful with that word because this isn't about being weak or incapable. The helpless stage is where most genuine growth begins. Life is, by conventional measures, functioning, but from the inside, something feels quietly wrong. There's a dissatisfaction without a clear source, a restlessness without an obvious solution. This stage isn't pathology, it's often a signal, a sign that an inner truth hasn't yet found its voice. E is for engaged. Something shifts, not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because staying the same is no longer an option. There's energy here, curiosity, a cautious kind of hope. This is often the point at which someone seeks support, not because they're weak, but because they're ready. And that readiness matters. Real change can't be forced. It arises when the person themselves becomes unwilling to keep on living on autopilot. A is for aware. This is where things happen and they begin to deepen. The questions become more personal. Not what should I do, but who am I really? Values begin to come into focus. Limiting beliefs begin to surface. Those quiet assumptions about what's possible and what we deserve that have been running around in the background for years. This is where the more honest version of a person begins to find room to breathe. R is for responsible, and this is where insight becomes action. Responsibility here isn't about blame, it's about ownership. A person accepts that their life is theirs to steer, and it begins the practical and often unglamorous work of change. Old patterns that can't come along, new habits that need time and repetition. This is also where relationships are sometimes tested because growth changes the shape of a person, and not everyone around them will be comfortable with it or welcome that. T is for transformed, and I want to be clear about what that means and what it doesn't. Transformed doesn't mean arrived. It doesn't mean perfect or certain or permanently at peace. It means integrated, a steadier sense of self, living in alignment with your values, not flawlessly, but sincerely. Fulfillment at this stage isn't the constant feeling of happiness. It's the deeper sense that your life is genuinely yours. And often people here feel drawn to contribute, to guide, to support, or to lead others in some way. Not from superiority, but because what they've learned feels too valuable to keep to themselves. The heart model isn't a race. Most people find themselves in more than one stage at once, grounded in one area of their life while still finding their footing in another. That's not failure, that's the human condition. What the model offers is orientation, a way of looking honestly at where you are, without judgment. And from that honest position, the next step tends to become a little more visible. Where do you find yourself today? I'd genuinely love to know. The heart model is the foundation of Living from the Heart, the first book in the Heart series. You'll find more at bernardcates.com. The link's in the description. I'll see you next time.